Hey, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to take a close look at the Legend Ultimate Arcade. I must say that the name does it right. It is indeed an Ultimate Arcade, but maybe not for you. In the end, this is a very interesting piece of equipment that I owned a long time in my collection. I must say I have seen a lot of different arcade machines from Arcade 1UP. Atgames brought something new to the table. A lot of, let's say, different options and a lot of new updates came through in the last couple of years. So when the product was launched, I was quite positive about it. But when looking into it now, they did so many changes. Unfortunate for European users, we do have a very huge limitations when it comes to the upgrades, particularly when you're looking at the stuff you can buy. Because this is more of a modular system. You can buy the core system and from that point you can upgrade it with all kinds of cool stuff. The upgrade is something we're going to talk about today, because this is one of those cool things I really love about the Atgames system. But also there are some downside that you need to take consideration if you're going to deep dive into this rabbit hole. One of the reasons I owned the Atgames system for such a long time is very simple. This thing is so modular. When you assemble it the first time, especially when it comes to the bottom part, it's still very modular. You can just rip it apart and just bring it to, let's say, in convention, or just relocate it to a different part of my gaming room or to my editing room. It's super easy and very convenient. And the way how it's made, it's quite durable. One of the things I really like about it. Don't get me wrong, the bottom part is made of a very thin wood, but that makes it also very lightweight. So if you want to just move it, you have no problem whatsoever. And that is one of the big reasons I love the Atgames machine. If you have limited space, this thing can be very handy due of, let's say, the space it takes up, but also if you want to transport it to a different location, it's easy. And of course, we can store a lot of crap inside the Atgames itself. Okay, here we're having the return button and play 1, 2 and the Atgames button. So the return button, this is something that is pretty cool. This button doesn't work with every game, but it's a fun way, or better said, it's more like a cheating way. You can return to a part of the game that you messed up. So it's pretty cool, very funny. Alright, so we're having here the play 1, play 2. Of course, we're going to need these for the console games. For the arcade game, you can also press the start button, and sometimes you need to combine it with the add game button. And in the menu you can choose, let's say, enter coin. With normal games you can choose the trackball speed, display mode. There are so many things you can change out. And of course we're having the scan line filter. That's something a lot of people were requesting with the Pandora's boxes. So let's show you over here with the display mode. It's quite interesting. So as you can see, we can put in every aspect ratio you like. So that is something that I really appreciate with the arcade games or the normal games with the Atgames. Over here we're having the on and off switch for turning the system on and off with one basic switch, very easy. We're having two clickish buttons that are basically the volume controls. So when you're pressing them, you can change out the volume very easily. Most of the time I'm putting them around 80 up to 100 because the speakers are not that loud. Here we're having the input for the HDMI device and two USB connections. And with this button you can switch between the second input and of course the original Atgames. But how about playing games on the Atgames? It's very cool because we're having a lot of games built inside, but also we're having more options, like we're having ArcadeNet. So let's talking about this. ArcadeNet is a way you can stream games, and as you can see we're having quite some big variation of games. You need to make an account, a Netflix idea, so you need to pay an amount of money every single month, and then you're having the options to stream games from the service to your system. And that is an awesome way to play, and it's still a growing library of games. And not to forget the option, bring your own games. Maybe in the future we'll look in this option because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the bring your own games option. So with the settings menu we have a lot of stuff going on over here, because here we're having a lot of things that we can do, can configure and even test out. So that's very interesting in my opinion. As you can see here, we have Wi-Fi, sign in, OTG mode, version, we can even make an update. And with the update, that is something very interesting. We're also going to get sometimes new games. So with the Ultimate Legend there is so much stuff going on and so much stuff you can do with it. In my opinion, one of the coolest things you can buy when you want to upgrade your Atgames physical appearance is the LCD bit marquee. Yep, you can update this freaking device with an LCD display for your marquee. I can tell you there are a lot of great tutorials out there that you're going to need, because this is not a plug and play solution. Don't get me wrong. The assembly of this thing is absolutely plug and play, but this is the software part where you need to deep dive into this rabbit hole. A couple of tutorials out there, depending also what you want to do with it. For example, you can also install CoinOPS X in combination with this bit LCD, but that's something we're going to talk about later. There are a lot of things that you're going to get in this, including a USB hub, extension cables, and of course everything for giving this thing some juice. You're still going to use yourself the original power supply of the Atgames Legend Ultimate, including some screws. Depending on what kind of version you're having, also here different tutorials out there that you need to assemble. Everything that is included, including the manual, are absolutely like well explained how you need to assemble and how you need to get this thing to work. In general, when it comes to the signal and everything, it's super easy to set up. You're not going to use an HDMI cable, but a USB cable to send the signal to the LCD. But nevertheless, the tutorial will explain everything. The final result of the LCD display is great. It's absolutely cool to see this thing in action, and in the main menu it works like a charm. All of the marquees are added to the USB stick that is implemented in the LCD display. And if you're going to add CoinOPS X, also here we're going to have different packs for. So when you're looking at the final result combined with some games, it's very cool to see a custom marquee with every single game you choose. The marquee and the quality depends what kind of file they've added. Some have just a tiny picture like this one, but the overall performance and also the way how it looks is absolutely great. You do have a kind of a delay of a couple of seconds every single time you choose the game. In my opinion, the system that is running on, or the general mainboard, it's not powerful enough to have all of these things going on. But you know what's kind of cool when it comes to the Atgames? This machine is the control panel. The trackball, the spinners and everything is an overall very nice quality. The trackball has a little bit too much of a resistance, but beside that it is very responsive. Nevertheless, that is one of the key features of the Legend Ultimate, but I think it's pretty damn cool. Every kind of game you can play actually with this. But let's talk about the controls and how is the joystick feeling. I can tell you the joystick feels quite nice. And I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing and feeling. Okay, next up the buttons. When you're pressing it very hard you can hear the spring itself, but these are feeling very nice. I played for some time and I'm very happy with the buttons. But let's talk about the spinner, because the spinner, these also feel very nice. And when playing with this spinner with some different games, I did notice that it feels very responsive. So a spinner is personally I have never had on an arcade machine before, and this is something that I always missing out big time, simply because there are so many games you can't just play with your joystick. So when I'm feeling the trackball, I feel a lot of resistance and it doesn't roll that smooth. But okay, when playing some games, it has a completely different way to play shooting games. Okay, here we're having the return button and play 1, 2 and the Atgames button. So the return button, this is something that is pretty cool. This button doesn't work with every game, but it's a fun way, or better said, it's more like a cheating way. You can return to a part of the game that you messed up. So it's pretty cool, very funny. Alright, so when you're having here the play 1, play 2, of course you're going to need these for the console games. For the arcade game you can also press the start button, and sometimes you need to combine it with the add game button. And in the menu you can choose, let's say, enter coin. With normal games you can choose the trackball speed, display mode. There are so many things you can change out. And of course we're having the scan line filter. That's something a lot of people were requesting with the Pandora's boxes. So let's show you over here with the display mode. It's quite interesting. So as you can see, we can put in every aspect ratio you like. So that is something that I really appreciate with the arcade games or the normal games with the Atgames. Over here we're having the on and off switch for turning the system on and off with one basic switch, very easy. We're having two clickish buttons that are basically the volume controls. So when you're pressing them, you can change out the volume very easily. Most of the time I'm putting them around 80 up to 100 because the speakers are not that loud. Here we're having the input for the HDMI device and two USB connections. And with this button you can switch between the second input and of course the original Atgames. But how about playing games on the Atgames? It's very cool because we're having a lot of games built inside, but also we're having more options, like we're having ArcadeNet. So let's talking about this. ArcadeNet is a way you can stream games, and as you can see we're having quite some big variation of games. You need to make an account, a Netflix idea, so you need to pay an amount of money every single month, and then you're having the options to stream games from the service to your system. And that is an awesome way to play, and is still a growing library of games. And not to forget the option, bring your own games. Maybe in the future we'll look in this option, because there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the bring your own games option. But let's talk about the upgrade when it comes to CoinOPS X. Absolutely great that you can configure yourself a USB thumb drive and connect it with your Atgames machine. CoinOPS X is basically a program that gives you the option to add all kinds of cool stuff to it. When it is your typical Street Fighter game or a beat 'em up, you can play everything. But what I particularly really love about is the compatibility with the menu and all of the different controls. Spinners, trackballs, everything have been given a special category, and everything works pretty damn great. And so one of the cool things, and in my opinion, that makes this thing complete and giving you the ultimate experience. CoinOPS X also can be booted up through the menu. It works very easily. The only thing I do notice is that the machine itself struggles a little bit when it comes to the menu, feels a little bit slow and clunky in my opinion. But when it comes to the controls, for example, the Atgames button can still be used for entering the menu, but the reverse doesn't work with CoinOPS X so far, you know. By pressing the Atgames buttons, here we're going to get ourselves the insert coin, making quick save, or going to the advanced configuration, button mapping. We can even have a scan line implemented if you want to. So when it comes to the all games, oh boy, it's one huge list, but when you're going to move the joystick to the left and the right, here we can choose different categories, makes it searching way better. So if you're spending a night checking out all of your favorite games, you can even do that, or Let's Plays, what is new, arcade classic, there are a lot of different categories. Cooperative, and of course the spinner. The spinner is one of the features I don't see often when it comes to arcade machines nowadays. But combining this with the CoinOPS X, this works perfectly, and all of your classic games like Arkanoid can be played without any hassle. And I've noticed I really suck at this game. Where the trackball has a lot of resistance, I must say this is not the best, smoothest, let's say, trackball I have seen out there. But I was quite surprised when you're looking at the trackball list. It was a combination of light gun games and the trackball. Nevertheless, when you're looking at the list itself, I think the most appealing games are games like Marble Madness. Marble Madness can only be played with a trackball, and I can tell you, this is absolutely a lot of fun. I was surprised to see how actually good it runs. Some games need to be played with two joysticks, so we only can play it with one player. Games when it comes to Smash TV, and they even have a section of games that uses the two joysticks simultaneously. But in the end, when you're looking at the list, this Atgames combined with CoinOPS X is absolutely amazing. There are a lot of cool two-dimensional games, a lot of classic games that can be played. The consideration is or even a 4-player deck that you can upgrade your machine with, so you can play with 3 or 4 players. How cool is that? But okay, it's a lot of fun playing these games, but take into consideration you can play these things on a lot of products nowadays. So when you're looking at the overall layout, they did some minor changes here and there with some updates. First of all, I couldn't check out the 3 or 4 player deck because it's unable for me to get it here. Another thing is, yeah, light gun situation. It would be so cool to add light guns to this. There is even some compatibility when it comes to begin with, the main software, and there are even some games on the Atgames Legend that supports it. Light gun games can also be found on CoinOPS X. Oh man, it would be absolutely the ultimate add-on to this machine. That makes it the all-in-one product you can play on. But a retro shooter or gun 4max or whatever, it cannot be played on this. You cannot be modified. So unfortunate, light gun, I couldn't test it out. Having CoinOPS X, this is not really necessary, but I just wanted to show you that it's even possible to implement external devices like the Retroid Pocket Handheld. You can use a handheld inside this machine, configure the control panel, and just use this thing actually like an emulation beast. Pretty damn cool in my opinion, one of the wicked ways also to play beside CoinOPS X. You can find different ports over here. So what you can do is the following thing. We're having the input for the HDMI. We're going to use this one. We can combine it with an USB connection for just powering on device so we can use it. And here we're having the switch for switching to the different video modes. On your handheld you will find an HDMI output and of course the mic USB for charging the system. Otherwise you can only use it for a couple of hours. Plug it in, that's it, and will recognize the HDMI output instantly. The next step, what we're going to do, plug it into the Atgames system and we're going to set it on connection or HDMI input number 2. When everything is set up, you can see that it will send out the signal to the monitor of the Atgames Legend Ultimate Arcade. Next up, hold the home button on the handheld. It will bring you to the settings menu because we need to reconfigure the controls. Let's go to handheld settings. With the handheld settings, we're going to the Bluetooth. If it's off, you're going to turn it on. And then we're going to the connection of the products, and as you can see over here, it already recognized my device. But the reason what you need to do with the control panel, you need to hold player 2, and if everything goes like it should be, you will see that the 2 LEDs will start blinking. This means that they are searching for a product to get connected to. In my case, this will be the Retroid Pocket. But if you have any problems connecting the buttons or you're using it for a couple of times, what you need to do is disable and enable the Bluetooth connection. That will help. Or what you can do is remove all the connections or combine these two and reconnect everything, and everything, as you can see, will find its way. Very easy to do, and that's the thing that will help out when you're having some problems when connecting the control panel to your Bluetooth device. But okay, so we're not done yet. There is something else you need to configure or check out at least, otherwise you have problems with play with 2 players, because yes, that is possible with the Retroid this way. Okay, so next up, what we're going to do, we're going to check if the controls are all configured correctly. Let's go to the key settings. Here we're going to back to the gamepad settings. When you're going to this option, you will see most of the time your controls. If you don't, you need to reconnect everything again. I just wanted to show you because I had some problems with this video. But as you can see over here, that everything will work now fine. Going back to the key settings, checking the gamepad settings, and now I can see my control panel 1 and 2. Keep in mind, you need to put it on player 1 and player 2. If something is messed up, it will not work in the game. So that's it. You can even hook up 4 players to the Retroid Pocket, so that's pretty cool in my opinion. You can reconfigure all the buttons. I'm just going to leave them default, simply because it does work. But if you don't like the configuration of the default, you can always put it on your personal settings. Okay, so we're ready to go, and let's try out some games and let's see how they are running. So we plugged in the Super Console X, and the same goes for the Pro. It works like a charm, but the only thing I didn't like was like this device bungling beside your cabinet. So I came across the Super Console X, did a full review about this device, and it was more like, hey, this can be a very easy plug and play solution. So let's check it out and let's see if this is going to be working, because if you're going to do this, this is just super convenient. A fun fact is, we're only going to need 2 things. We're going to use the Super Console X, one of these ports for connecting the controller and giving it some juice, and this special cable that we're going to get with the Legend Arcade. Plug in the Super Console X stick. Next up, plug in the cable. If it doesn't work, use the left port. Okay, turn it around wicked. Plug in the Y port over here. And that's the only thing that we're going to need. And don't use the blue one. It's highly possible the controller can't get recognized by the Android or EmuElec. Next up, power it on. Alright, so next up, the LED go blue, so that means it's powered on. And the next thing that we need to wait for is the Atgames Ultimate Legend arcade machine to boot up. Alright, so when the system is powered on, the next thing we need to do, of course, go to the settings mode. The reason why we go to the settings mode, we need to activate our arcade stick more like a USB device. Let's go to the OTG mode. Press it, and when done, it will give you the mode that is powered on and ready to go. Then press the button to switch to HDMI port number 1. And what you can see is that the EmuElec has been booted up and we are ready to set up the controls. And if you're having some problems, double check the OTG mode that is set to USB connected. The Legend Ultimate cannot be used. Just want to point it out quickly. Alright, so let's go back to the HDMI 2 or 1. Alright, so you can see that it's connected now. What we need to do is configure the controls. We're just going to use the D-pad as my main. We can configure the spinners and the trackball so far I know. We're only having the AB, X, Y and L1 and R1, only having a 6-button layout. So there are some limitations with some games. If you replace it with the Ultimate Arcade Stick 8-button layout, of course you can use 8 buttons. So it depends what kind of EmuElec software pack or you're going to build yourself. I recommend using the hotkey with this version I'm having here. This is 3.9, and the thing is more like if I don't configure the hotkey, I'm going to do it like this in the video. I have some problems getting back into the game menu, so that is a little bit of a problem, and that is something you need to take consideration. But if you want to play together with your buddy with player 2, you can see nothing works. So what you need to do is press the start button and go to the control configuration, because you need to set up the second controller. So this is what we're going to do. Basically it's the same story. Go to control settings, play 1, choose A. Okay, take consideration. First we're going to configure it. Yeah, you're going to ask me if you want to be sure. Yes, it says 2 gamepads detected. Alright, next up, hold the button on play 2 and we're going to do the same story all over again. Select start is a problem, and there's another problem that we're only having in player 2. The Atgames button can't use for the select button. You can use it for configuring, like using it for a hotkey. I did notice it worked with player 1, but it's kind of weird in my opinion. So this is a big problem if you will need a second select button for an arcade game. But that's a minor problem. Or maybe a big one. The next thing that we need to do is configure the controllers for player 1, player 2. Otherwise it's going to be messed up in the games. So you can see we're having hashtag 0 and hashtag 1. That indicates player 1 and player 2, or player left or player right. The Atgames Legend Ultimate. In my opinion, it's absolutely an ultimate cabinet because you can do whatever you want with it. You can just basically stream games from the servers, you can add games through a USB stick, or implement an external device like an handheld, or you're just going to use yourself like a super cool slick stick. Many different ways to play, and it gives a lot of freedom. Of course it comes with limitations, especially when it comes to European users. We don't have all of the cool gadgets where we can normally get as a US owner. For example, the light guns, I could have tested, it would be so cool to do that. If you're going to implement that too in the machine, you have everything that you're going to need. Of course, powerful wise, we need some, let's say, more power to that, but I understand when making this video, they're still working on it. I'm looking forward what Atgames is going to bring out in the future. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and it would be great to see you in the next video.